Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Gregorian. I'm the president and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's meeting, and I especially want to welcome our DEC members. If you are not a DEC member yet, please allow me 10 seconds to myth bust. Number one, there is no application process. Number two, there is no job level requirement. We're just simply looking for people that want to network with great folks to the right and left of you, and also people that love to learn from thought leaders at our stage. So there's great benefits. You can sign up to become a member at econclub.org. As we get started with the program today, I would ask you just to kindly silence your cell phone so we do not disturb the program. And one of the many traditions at Detroit Economic Club meetings is we always begin by honoring our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I invite you to stand and join me, and the flag is to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please be seated. A quick but important thank you to Detroit Public Television and Lawrence Technological University, who are partnering with us on today's live webcast. A couple of things on your tables I'd like to call your attention to. One is our season lineup. We've got a few programs left before we go a little dormant this summer. On June 17th, we hope you've got a ticket to our sold-out late afternoon networking event at the amazing M1 Concourse. It'll be hosted by David Fisher Jr. and the Suburban Collection. On June 20th, a breakfast series seminar, Professional Development, delivered by Lee Hecht Harrison. This particular seminar, which goes from 8 till 10, is how to shape and execute strategy. Take a look at those. They're really, really good. And then on June 28th, we've got the privilege and honor we just announced last week, where we will be hosting U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross at the Westin Book Cadillac. So we look forward to seeing you when your schedule permits. Also on your table is our sponsor brochure. We would not be here today if it wasn't for the generosity of these terrific sponsors. I would encourage you to take a look at this, patronize these people, thank them, and if you're interested in becoming one of these sponsors, I would love to talk with you about it offline. Also on your table is instructions on how to submit questions for the final 15 minutes of today's program. Certainly one of the things that members enjoy is the opportunity to ask our speaker questions. You can do so via smartphone, and we're looking forward to that segment as well. If you're a tweeter, we want you to tweet today using @DECeconomicClub. The DEC, as you know, has an incredible history of speakers that we love to share. Chairman McDaniel, let's look and see who you shared the DEC stage with on June 10th in our history. It turns out that you are now joined a distinguished list of 6 other speakers who have graced our podium on this day. And usually it was sort of interesting when I was doing the research. Usually when I do this, we've got speakers on this date that go all the way back to the 1930s. But some anomaly, the first time we hosted somebody on June 10th was 2008. And that was Chairman Michael Dell of Dell Computers. Also on this date, 2013, Senator Carl Levin, and in 2014, the CEO of Deloitte, Jim Moffitt. So today we're pleased to add you as our 7th speaker on this day in DEC history. Congratulations and thank you. Of course, we love having high school and college students with us at every one of our programs. They're here courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors. They also, as they always do, had a chance to have a private-only reception with our speaker. Today was no exception. I want to take a quick minute and let you know who is with us. We've got students today from Wayne County Community College District, compliments of Matt and the great team at Ford Motor Company. Thank you, Matt. Matt was very generous because he also brought some students from Catholic Central High School. Thank you, Matt. And by the way, kudos to the students. They have graduated. They're out. They're seniors. They're done. They're on their way to college. But they got up, got dressed up in a suit and tie, and came here today. So thank you to those guys. If it was me, I'm on the flip-flop scene, going to the beach the day after graduation. Cody High School is here, compliments of John and the team at Walbridge, and Schoolcraft College, thanks to the Dow Chemical Company. How about a round of applause for all of our students and their sponsors? Thank you. So in addition to these terrific students, we've got 2 very special student guests with us today. It's one of our favorite days of the year because today is the day we announce our annual Detroit Economic Club Scholarship winners. The scholarship is a 4-year renewable scholarship of $2,000 each year for 4 years and is given to 2 deserving graduating high school seniors. That means each and every year the DEC is proud to support 8 college students as they further their education. The fund is expertly managed by the Community Foundation Southeast Michigan, and I want to thank Katie and Lindsay for their hard work on this project. The fund attracts the largest number of eligible applicants of any scholarship fund that the foundation manages, and this year we received almost 400 applications for 2 slots. Applicants must meet the criteria of academic achievement, leadership, character, and financial needs. And I think when you hear about this year's recipients, you'll understand why they were selected. So let me start by bringing up Chioma Ugachukwu. Come on up, Chioma. And you get to stand right here, all right? Let me tell you a bit about Chioma. She'll graduate tomorrow from Renaissance High School in Detroit with a 3.86 GPA. She has earned honor roll status throughout high school. She placed 4th in the citywide science fair and received an honorable mention for 10th in the statewide science fair. One of her recommenders and teachers praised Chioma's diligence and academic vigor and shared a story of Chioma doubling up on 2 challenging math courses, Honors Algebra 2 and Honors Geometry, against the teacher's recommendation. This was really impactful as we were going through and selecting. Listen to this. The teacher wrote, "In my 5 years of teaching, Chioma is the student who has changed and impacted me the most as a teacher. I remember distinctly thinking she should have never doubled up on math and taken an honors course. But because of Chioma, I will never have this thought about a student ever again." That's pretty impactful. Outside of the classroom, Chioma participates in medical internship, is highly involved in her church, and worked to help support her family. She is a first-generation college student, and she will attend Harvard University in September. Look at you. I told you they'd love you. And she plans to major in biology with a pre-med focus, and you will be coming back to Michigan, correct? Okay, good. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Chioma. All right, number 2, Yasmin Slimani. Come on up. She graduated from Fordson High School last Friday. Graduated from Fordson with a 4.25 GPA. She earned honor roll status all 4 years of high school, as well as AP Scholar distinction for earning high marks on her AP exams. She was a first-place winner at the Dearborn Center for Math, Science, and Technology Science Fair. On top of her academic success, she is a member of the Teen Grant-Making Initiative for the Center for Arab America Philanthropy, as well as the Student Council and Diversity Club at Fordson. She holds a leadership role in a school club focusing on domestic violence awareness and prevention. She's also currently working 2 jobs to raise money for college. One recommender shared that Yasmin sets high goals, is determined to accomplish and excel in anything she sets her mind to. In middle school, Yasmin had surgery to correct scoliosis, which sparked her interest in medicine. She will attend the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Go Blue, in September. Where she will also major in biology with a pre-med focus. Please congratulate Yasmin Slimani. Congratulations, good luck. Hope to see you again soon. And now on with today's program. Today's presiding officer is Detroit Economic Club board member John Ricolta Jr. He is the chairman and CEO of Wallbridge. He is a great friend of the DEC, a great supporter of many things in our community, a mentor of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Ricolta Jr.
She said, son, you're growing up now. Better shop around. Shop around. There's some things that I want you to know now.
Love that Motown music. It's fantastic. It's my pleasure to introduce both Carol Kane and Ronna McDaniel. Carol is an award-winning columnist at the Detroit Free Press, where she served as a national editor, international editor, business editor, and columnist. She has focused her career on highlighting the importance of diversity and inclusion, and has written many articles and columns that speak to the significance of relationship building across the community. She is the recipient of numerous awards for her work from various Michigan organizations, including the National Association of Women Business Owners, the Michigan Muslim Community Council, the League of Women Voters, the Detroit Chinese Business Association, and many others. Carol is a native of Detroit, attending Detroit Public Schools and obtaining her BA in Communications from Michigan State University with a master's from the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. She will be interviewing none other than Ronna McDaniel, also known as Ronna McDaniel. I'm not sure if many of you know about this, but Ronna is my niece. And so it's a great pride that I introduce her to you today. Ronna was born and raised in Bloomfield Hills and attended Lasser High School before going on to Brigham Young University, where she earned a bachelor degree in English. She returned to Michigan thereafter, where she lives with her husband and 2 children. She has been a lifelong member of the Republican Party. In fact, I think that she was probably given a certificate the day she was born. And is currently the chair of the Republican National Committee and former chair of the Michigan Republican Party. Politics is ingrained in her DNA. Her grandfather, of course, was the former governor of the state. Her mother was the National Committee woman from Michigan and ran for Senate twice. Her uncle is none other than currently Senator Mitt Romney, and even her father, Scott Romney, has run for office on occasion. Following her work as a production manager for SRCP Media and business manager for Mills, James, and Agilon, thank you. Ronna went on to work for her Uncle Mitt on his 2012 presidential campaign. She was elected Michigan's representative to the National Committee in 2014. And in 2016, during a presidential election, Ronna served as a delegate for the Republican National Convention, and now President Donald Trump, and then became a candidate for chair to the RNC. On January 19th, 2017, she was officially elected as the RNC chairperson, becoming only the 2nd woman in the history to hold such a title. With that, please welcome both Ronna and Carol to the stage. Thank you.
Making sure, can everyone hear me okay? Ronna?
Can everyone hear me okay? All right, good.
I know what my first question is not going to be, and that is, what was our GPA in high school and college? You want to?
It was amazing. It was huge.
Huge.
It was big league.
Hearing the impressive resumes of the young folks who just got awards, and we earlier talked with some of the students here. Kudos to all the sponsors here who support them. That really is so important, and round of applause again for them. There's so much to talk about here, and I know as I was walking around earlier, people were giving me questions to kind of bring to the fold here, and I know that John will be back up with some of the audience questions, but I had a chance to think about a few of them, add in what some people here have told me. So, Madam Chairman, you represent the national organization, but you're here in Michigan, which obviously holds a special place in your heart. And we're going to talk about the president and issues there. But first, let's touch base on the 2018 midterms. Let's just say the midterms were not the best for the GOP nationwide. And while certainly the GOP maintains control of the Senate, the House flipped pretty significantly towards Democrats. What is the state of the party, irrespective, and let's leave that, the presidential race out of it, what is the state of the Republican Party right now?
Well, there's a lot in there. First, I want to say it's so great to be in Michigan. I love Michigan. My husband, Patrick, and I still live in Michigan. We have 2 children, Abigail and Nash. And can all my family stand up who's here today? Just because I'm going to miss everybody, but everybody related, please stand up. Patrick. My dad, Scott, is here, my brother, Griffin, my brother, Mark, my husband, Patrick, cousins, aunts and uncles. Mike, you didn't stand up, your family too. And I'm just so grateful to have you all here, and Michigan's near and dear to my heart. When it comes to the state of the national party, there's a couple things that I would love to point out about the midterms, which is historically the party did do significantly better than what we typically do in a midterm. Usually the Republican Party, especially when you have the White House, the Senate, and the House, you usually lose about 3 seats in the Senate. On average, we actually picked up 2, taking out senators like Bill Nelson, Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly. So huge wins on the Senate side, increasing that majority, which has allowed the president to put more judicial nominees forward and really given him some flexibility in the Senate. On the House side, historically, you do lose in that first midterm, especially when you hold those branches in that first presidential midterm. Barack Obama lost 63 seats. Bill Clinton lost 54. We lost 40. And while we didn't want to lose those seats, we're now getting ready for 2020, and it takes 18 seats to flip back the House, and we have 31 congressional members that are now sitting in districts where President Trump won. So winning the House back is definitely a possibility. I think it's something that we're going to do, and we're going to have a much more difficult Senate map. So now let's look at RNC versus DNC. This is my favorite comparison right now. What we have to do most of the time as party chairs, and I know nobody in this room is shocked by that because I've called most of you, is raise money. It's 90% of my job. We just posted a $61 million raise for the first quarter of 2019. That is a record. In fact, I told the president last night when I talked to him that of the 29 months that he's been president, the RNC has broken records, 22 of those in fundraising. So we posted $61 million. The DNC was at half that. We had $34 million cash on hand with no debt. They had $7 million cash on hand with $6.5 million in debt. So if you're looking at what are we doing to prepare for 2020, me having that war chest and already being in states doing voter registration, identifying my likely voters, setting up state directors in my battleground states puts us in a great position for 2020. And I feel pretty good about 2018. We also kept key governorships in Ohio, Iowa, New Hampshire, Florida, to name a few.
To name a few here. So let's talk, you talk a little bit about some of the conversation, and I think to say that Washington, there's incivility, it's very volatile.
No,
yeah.
we're all so nice to each other.
So I guess the question is, in recent years, it's become more pronounced. There's no doubt about it. In the last 2 years, it's become far more pronounced than it's ever been before. And why do you think the civility is now gone from politics?
Well, I hope that it's not gone forever. And I do think there are instances where there is a lot of civility. And I don't think that gets as broadcast as it should be. I think one of the great highlights of this presidency is the bipartisan passage of the First Steps Act, which I'm sure many of you are aware, reduced prison sentences for those that were disproportionately affected by harsh penalties, specifically in the African American community. And there are stories after stories now of people being released from prison for nonviolent crimes who now have a second lease on life. And that's something Democrats, you had Van Jones on CNN lauding President Trump. So that's a great moment. But yes, it is a difficult time. It's hard to attract people into politics when you have this incivility. But more importantly, we've got to continue to get things done.
You know, I always say to people, I've had bosses I didn't like in my life. I don't know if any of you have ever had that. But I've had bosses I didn't like, I've had coworkers I didn't like, but I still had a job to do. So I don't care if you don't like each other. Maybe you don't get along, but you've been sent to Washington to do the job. And we have major issues facing this country. So I do think if you're letting that incivility prevent you from accomplishing what the voters sent you to do, that's a problem. And right now, our government's paralyzed. Of course, I see it from one point of view with a huge immigration problem. With now we're on track to have 1 million people apprehended at the border. Just last month, we had a 600% increase over 2 years ago, 144,000 people. Our asylum laws are outdated. This is something that is a crisis. I talked to Mark Morgan, the director of ICE the other day, who worked for President Obama, who's now with President Trump. He said, you cannot believe the conditions that these people are facing who are coming here, these unaccompanied kids that are coming here. And he's like, why won't Congress act? And I think it's gonna take more civility to bring us to the table and put away the partisanship, get the job done. The voters will vote for you if you get the job done.
How much responsibility does Donald Trump have for incivility, particularly with some of the tweeting that he is famous for?
Well, I think everybody knew what they were getting when they elected President Trump. I think he's somebody who says it like it is. But I think it is a different level when you have certain congressional members like Maxine Waters saying, create a crowd around them, get in their face. You know, I was saying the other day, I was at a Cubs game this weekend, and somebody literally came up to me with my son and said, F you, F your son, you know, and it's frightening. And I'm like, our leaders should not be pushing that. And I've heard that. When they go low, kick them. That's what Eric Holder said. I mean, this is not what we should have. We should all call it out on both sides. I call it out. I don't want Democrats, I don't want anybody to attack a Democrat. Go vote. If you have a difference of opinion, have a conversation. We do not need to be physical. We don't need to be abusive. And I think that's something that we need to course correct in this country. And it's going to take our leaders, but it takes us too. I mean, what was interesting is this guy said it, but nobody around him said anything. And I'm like, you know, come on, that's not okay. I had a woman spit at my daughter because she was wearing a Trump shirt. I mean, this is just wrong. And she was 14. It's like, really? You're a grown woman and you're spitting at a 14-year-old? This is just a new low for our country, but it starts with us. We have to make a difference, and we can't allow it. We need to call it out on both sides of the aisle. And I'll tell you what, if I saw a Republican doing that to a Democrat, I would be the first one defending that Democrat and saying, you do not deserve to be treated that way. It's just wrong, and it's gonna hurt our country long term. I don't know how many people in the room were at the recent Detroit Regional Chamber's Economic Policy Conference last week. Mackinac Island, show of hands here, who was at the policy. I know a lot of people were. I had a chance to touch base with Jeb Bush, former governor who ran for president against Donald Trump, and talked with him about the education, which is why he was there. But we also just touched basically on the president. And I asked him He's a big fan. I'm just kidding.
Well, his point, the point he made, which is interesting, is Donald Trump, the economy is going along pretty well. People's investments are doing pretty well. And he maintained if Donald Trump would stop tweeting, he would be in the 50% polling and would be almost unbeatable in 2020. Do you think, one, do you agree with that? And two, do you think Donald Trump will ever stop tweeting?
Well, he's never going to stop tweeting. I get asked that all the time. He's never going to stop. And I don't totally agree with Jeb on that. I'm a big fan of Jeb Bush's. But the president can drive the news cycle. I've been on a TV show where suddenly the president will tweet and suddenly the news cycle shifts. And when you have a media, and this is according to nonpartisan studies, that 93% of the coverage is negative, how does he get his message out? So I'm mixed on whether well, first of all, I know for 100% certainty he's never going to stop tweeting. It's just not going to happen. So just take it off the table. And number two, sometimes it's a benefit, and sometimes people may disagree and not think that. Although I do agree with Jeb that he's done a lot of things right for this country. When you look at unemployment, 3.6% right now, 3.6%. We have more jobs open than we have people to fill them. 6 million jobs have been created in the 2.5 years he's been president, and 5 million people have come off of food stamps. That doesn't just happen. And you've rolled back, yeah, thank you. And as business leaders, when you look at the regulations, there's 12 regulations being rolled back for every new one created. And you know that the regulations were burdening small business owners, especially, I mean, in this room, people who were trying to get small business loans from the community banks that were going underwater with Dodd-Frank. And women and minorities were the drivers of the small business creation, and they couldn't get loans because of Dodd-Frank. So pulling that out has given re-energized the small business growth. And then you look at the corporate tax rates. We were completely uncompetitive globally. And by rolling back the corporate tax rates to make us competitive, we're having more investment in this country. I mean, these are things, policy-driven initiatives that have come from this administration that have made a difference, and we are seeing the results of it. And wage growth is now up to 3%. It's been the first 10 months, it's been up above 3%. We haven't seen that in decades. So many good things are happening. We don't hear about it, but we feel it. I feel it as I travel the country. People say, I feel good, I can get a job, I'm feeling my wages are up. And those are the things that politicians are sent to Washington to do. Go figure.
So you mentioned you talked with the president last night. How often do you talk to Donald Trump? And your view of him versus what you think the typical media portrayal?
I wish people could see the president I see. And I keep those conversations private because I think the president deserves to speak to people and have those conversations private. There's a few things I'll share. I hurt my back last year, horribly hurt my back. I travel, I already hit diamond in April of this year on Delta, just to give you a feel of the amount of travel that I'm doing. And I really hurt my back to an event where to a point where I had to cancel all my events. And the president, I'm lying on my back at home and he calls, are you okay? Do I need to send a doctor? We can't have you off the playing field. I mean, he just, you know, he asked me if I was coming to a rally one weekend. I said, no, I'm not coming, sir. And he said, okay, well, tell Patrick, it's good that you're home with him. Tell Patrick, you know, you need to be home with you and the kids. We don't need you at this rally. He's just very personable. I think a couple weeks ago, he and I were just laughing on the phone, like literally laughing. And he doesn't usually laugh a lot. So I remembered that he and the First Lady were on the phone, and I said something that made them laugh, so I remember that. But, you know, he's very personable, very considerate of me. I would not do this job if he didn't always have my back. He's had my back 100% of the time. And I talk to him pretty regularly. You know, there's days where I'll talk to him 3 or 4 times. I hadn't talked to him during this overseas stint, so he called last night and just said, checking in, how we doing? And my son Nash tries to pick up the phone and talk to him, and it's very embarrassing. One day I was getting Nash off to school, and I was running late, and the president called, and Nash was so annoyed that I was running late that he started playing rap music really loud right by the phone, and I'm like, I'm on the phone with the President of the United States. And he was like, I do not care, I'm late for school. And that is a true story. So if you see Nash, please scold him for embarrassing his mom.
He knows how to work it.
Yes.
So you're here in Michigan. Michigan flipped in 2016, went red, voted for Donald Trump. 2018, the Democrats took back the state, many of the top positions there. How do you see Michigan coming up in 2020 and your view of it as a swing state and importance?
Well, Michigan is absolutely a swing state. One of the reasons I ran for Michigan chair, that I was so passionate running for Michigan chair, and I think Democrats and Republicans will agree with this, we were a flyover state. We were not being campaigned in by presidential candidates. McCain famously pulled out of Michigan. My Uncle Mitt, I love him, he did not come to Michigan post-nomination, and I really felt like Michigan was a viable state presidentially. If you look at even the Bill Clinton race against George H.W. Bush, Ross Perot took about 19% of the vote. So we were a state that was ripe for a presidential candidate to come in. So I had made a goal when I became chair to meet with every candidate as they came in. Usually chairs stay neutral, I remain neutral, but I made a decision to go to every rally for every candidate to make the case for Michigan. We had a March 8th primary, and I knew we had positioned our primary in a sweet spot where we could be really important. And Donald Trump, then candidate Trump, when I would say it to him, he listened. Most of them didn't. They listened to the DEC consultants who, until the very end, made fun of Donald Trump for continuing to come to Michigan. And we saw something on the ground. It's a tribute to the RNC, Reince Priebus, the data program that we had. And just to give you a feel, I think I was in your newsroom. I was in everybody's newsroom on election night, 2016. And people are laughing at me, and like, not laughing, but like, oh, good try, Ronna. Sorry, Trump's gonna lose. Like, Patrick was with me. It was pretty condescending. And everybody thought it was done and Hillary was gonna win. What they didn't have was my numbers. We had Trump and our numbers winning Michigan by 25,000 votes. Now, when I asked the DNC chair, or the Michigan chair on the Democrat side, what did you have Hillary winning by? He said 5 points. What people do not understand is our investment in data at the RNC, and when I say data, I mean 3,000 data points on all 200 million voters that create our analytics and our compass as to how we engage voters individually. When our data is on, I know, guess what, candidate Trump, you should do your last rally in Grand Rapids and start election day in Michigan, because that's how close it is in our state. And guess that's exactly what he did. And he won by 10,700 votes. So that is the difference. That's the difference the RNC can make. Now, Michigan is now going to be competitive, and that is great for our state. They're going to talk about our issues. We've already had many Democrat candidates here. President Trump has recently been here. I'm doing an event tomorrow with Brad Parscale in Macomb County, which was the key swing county. Michigan's going to be competitive. It's going to be harder. You did same-day registration, and you have a Democrat governor, and it's going to be a more difficult state, but we're up for the challenge, and I think we'll win Michigan.
We were together, by the way, on election night 2016, and I admit I was one of those people. As we were talking, we were both doing commentating, and she talked, and she said that Trump was going to win. Based on all the polling, I thought Ron had had a few drinks before she got there.
But I'm Mormon. I don't do that stuff.
So let's talk a couple issues here in the state here. Michigan is more impacted by the Trump administration's positions on tariffs. Why is the administration, you think, pushing so hard on tariffs with China and other countries, knowing the severe impact it's going to have on some companies here?
Well, I think Michigan's actually felt the effect of the trade deficit that we've had with China. I mean, if you look at what we've continually had with China, which is a $500 billion trade deficit year after year after year, we've allowed China to nation build on top of the intellectual property rights that they have taken, which is in the cost of 100 to 200 billion. So why would we allow that to continue to happen, to continue to have that leverage when they are allowed to bring our products into their country, or they don't bring our products into their country, and we're importing many of their products into our country? So the president isn't saying, I'm not free trade, because he is, and he's for fair trade, but he's saying enough is enough. We're not going to let our country continue to be taken advantage of. And I think he's doing the right thing with China, and their country right now is on the ropes. They've subsidized industries. If you listen to Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross on this, it's pretty phenomenal when he goes through the numbers. Now, when it comes to Mexico, which we just saw the end of the president threatening to bring tariffs upon Mexico, it was pushed back a lot by Democrats and Republicans. Again, when I talked to the ICE director, and he said, we have gone to Mexico in good faith and said, we need you to be a good neighbor. We had the Remain in Mexico policy, which allowed people to stay in Mexico while they seek asylum. We have, with Canada, we have the Third Safe Country Agreement, which is, if you're seeking asylum, why not seek asylum in the first country that's safe? Why do you have to cross through another country, which Canada engages in with us, Mexico doesn't? He said they've been giving visas, they're letting buses through. Mexico has not been acting well. We've done everything we possibly can. The president chose to apply economic pressure, and guess what? It worked. It worked, and now Mexico has said we're going to allow more people to stay in Mexico as they seek asylum. And what people don't recognize is we have an 800,000 case backlog in this country of asylum seekers. By the time they get these cases resolved, it's 2-3 years. 800,000. Asylum claims are up 1,700% in the past 8 years. It is just not sustainable. Our leaders know it, our politicians know it. They are not handling the problem. The president wants to work with Nancy Pelosi. He does. There's nobody who wants to make a deal more than this president. And she said no. And so what other means did he have at his disposal except the threatening of economic pressure on Mexico to be a better actor? And it worked. Now, everybody in Michigan should want USMCA to get passed. And let's see if Pelosi will bring the vote to the floor, because USMCA will modernize NAFTA, it will bring up wages, and it will bring more manufacturing jobs. It is a good thing for the state of Michigan, and it's something that they could do in a bipartisan way going forward, but it's going to take pressure on Democrats and Republicans, especially from our state.
Some of the polling that's been taking place here in the state has various candidates up. They're pitting them against Donald Trump, and Joe Biden appears to be the ringleader on the Democratic side of it. Is Joe Biden the #1 concern with respect to 2020 from your standpoint and where you stood?
You know, I don't know, and I don't mean that to be vague, or I just think it's really hard to tell where the Democrat Party is going to go with 23 candidates. I actually can name them all if you want to test me later. 23 candidates in the field, and one thing that's very different about their primary than Republican primaries is theirs are all proportional. So if you hit a certain threshold in every state, you're going to take out delegates. So it's much harder to reach that threshold to secure the nomination. That's why Bernie Sanders was in so long against Hillary Clinton. So I think there's a long road ahead. The debates are taking place in Miami. I will be there on the 26th and 27th. Biden's numbers have slipped as of late. You've seen people surge like Buttigieg. I think there's room for a lot of movement. But again, I'm not going to prognosticate that I know anything. I just do know that John James is going to beat Gary Peters in our Senate race here in Michigan. That I do know.
So I know that the Economic Club is nonpartisan.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
I was going to ask if there are how many Republicans and Democrats. No need. We just heard the applause for John. No need. That's like a wasted question. So
I can't help it. Sorry. I love John. He's so great. So.
So how much time going forward when you have candidates? I mean, you're the national chair. How much time do you spend in local states like Michigan then in supporting candidates and raising monies for local candidates like John?
So I think I've been to 32 states, and I also was in Guam this year. If you ever go to Guam and you need some tips, call me, because I know all about Guam now. The tree snakes, I don't know if you've heard about tree snakes in Guam, the tree snakes that jump out at you. I didn't see a single tree snake. Travel all over the country, doing Lincoln Day dinners, helping to raise money for parties. I love it. I love people. I love talking to people. It's just the greatest joy to go into a state and meet new people and talk to them about why they're motivated or why they're running and helping them raise money. So now it's helping these candidates like John and others be successful. And for me, most of it's raising money. A lot of it is, I'd say it's 90% of my time raising the money.
So you and I have talked often through the years. I've interviewed your various family members, including Mitt Romney. I know Mitt came out and tweeted some things about Donald Trump. I just had to ask this question. Yeah,
I never saw that. I had no idea.
That's the question. Having a family that's so involved of civics and politically and so many different things here, when you have disagreements like this, here you are head of the party and you have a new senator taking issue with the president. How did that go over with at the family dinners?
You know, I've often said that I could do a pay-per-view Romney family dinner, and I'd probably make all my money for the whole year because it would be so fun. And listen, we're like any other family. We have differences of opinions politically. That's okay. I think it is a little more exaggerated when your uncle's a senator and you're the head of the Republican Party, and it plays out on a more national scale. But Mitt and I were fine. We're going to settle this in a softball game on June 17th in Washington, D.C. Mitt's staff will be playing my staff. We will win. But we're really excited. But it's not personal. I think it's harder on the kids. I think it's harder on his kids. It's harder on my dad. It's harder on other folks. But for Mitt and I, you know, we can leave politics at the table, at the doorstep, and we're family first. And that's really what it is.
I'm going to be turning this over to John, but one last question. What advice would you have to the young people here? The young people, I could tell just from some of the backgrounds of the young folks and the young speakers earlier, they're looking at politics. What advice do you give to somebody, a young person who's thinking about it, and tips to consider if they really do want to go into politics?
Well, the first thing I would say is go volunteer for a candidate you believe in and learn the process. I mean, really find a candidate, go in their office, do mail, knock doors, figure out if it's something you write that is right for you. The first advice I give to anybody who says they're going to run for office to me, I will tell you, is to go run an opposition package on yourself. Figure out all the things in your life that you may not want out there, because it will come out. And if if you don't have an appetite for that, then you should not run. But there's many other ways to serve. Getting involved in a campaign, working for a party. We have a great internship program at the RNC. Our interns are great. Get involved. It's not going to get better by just letting it go and not getting engaged and giving it to somebody else to do. The only way you can make a difference is if you step up and let your voice be heard. So please do that.
I'm walking away with my one last question. I promise, John, this is the last one. So you're RNC chair for another, how many months?
No, for, I don't know, till January of 2021.
And so many people have speculated you would be a great candidate yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the right path. I never say never, right? I don't know if that's I love the strategy side of it. I don't know if I'm gonna ever be a candidate, but I love helping elect candidates.
There we go. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you. John, it's all about you now.
Stand up.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you can join me up here, or you can stand. No, that's okay. We want to take
All right.
the time asking
I'll
questions.
stand up with you.
Okay, good.
It's weird if I'm sitting over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't think this through.
Okay.
We needed your strategy on this one. So the first question is, in an ideal world, how do you feel about outside money? And would it be less important regarding influencing policy decisions if somehow our country could come to some place where so much money wasn't spent?
So the RNC can't take corporate money. We take personal donations, and they're all disclosed every month on our FEC report. My personal feeling would be I would rather there be higher limits with transparency and less soft money that can come in without any transparency. That's my personal belief. I think candidate limits are way too low. $2,800 is the most you can give John James. $2,800 is the most you can give. No, I'm just kidding. But I just think that's too low. I think that's too low to mount a real campaign. And I think it's wrong. And my Uncle Mitt said this to me once. You know, you can have an outside group where someone can pump $100 million in anonymously to attack you. And as a candidate, you can't raise that same money to defend yourself. And I just think that something's out of balance when a candidate has such prohibitive giving limits. And that's why they depend on the RNC, because I have a much higher limit that I can help build that infrastructure to get out the vote, do absentee chase and all the things, but I'm not a huge fan of the soft money. I'm probably different than most of my party on that. But Terry Lynn Land's raising her eyes.
So here's another good question about party politics. In the long term, how does the Republican Party grow as a voting population given the diversity of our nation right now?
I think that's one of the questions I get the most, which is how's the party reaching out to new voters? And we have a job to do. It was one of the things I loved about the Detroit office we started. Bobby Shostak just left, but Bobby was chair before me. We've got to go into communities that haven't heard about the Republican Party and talk about what we stand for if we're going to expand our party. So an example of that is work that we're doing in Florida right now with the Puerto Rican community. You know, we have a lot of people who've been displaced by the tragedy of Hurricane Maria. So as the Republican Party there, we've reached out to those individuals. We've given them welcome packets. We've said, let us help you find your school. Let us help you get ingrained into your community. And then let's teach you about our party and our values and what we stand for, because we're more aligned than we think. But you're not going to change voters' hearts and minds if you don't show up. And we have a lot more in common with people than they think. You know, I go to colleges like University of Chicago or Georgetown, and I'm usually met with a pretty hostile crowd with these young kids. And then when we start talking about issues, they're like, wait, I've never heard that before. I didn't know. So we've just got to show up in different places, and we've seen inroads in the Hispanic community and the African American community, especially with things like the First Steps Act and the record of the president's unemployment, which is the lowest, provided the lowest unemployment in history for the African American, Asian, and Hispanic communities.
So I wanted to ask this one question. What's it like going on CNN or MSNBC or Fox and having you constantly attacked by the newscaster? How do you prepare for that? What is your feeling as you're sitting in the green room? How do you handle all that pressure and be able to come up with a fantastic answer that you do?
I'm afraid every time. I'm all nervous every single time. I don't care who you are. And sometimes the interviews that you think are going to be easier are harder. Like Lou Dobbs is no walk in the park because he's tough. I'm always nervous, which I think in life it's good to feel that way because then you prepare more. So I read my briefing. I spend time on the phone with my comms team. I really do my research. I study at night. I have to be up on the issues. Listen, RNC chair, believe it or not, I'm not a policymaker, And I have to talk about tariffs, and I have to know about USMCA, and I have to know about the Paris Climate Accords, and I have to know about every single thing happening across the country. And that's not my job, really, is to win elections and create a ground game. I can tell you how to get out the vote in Minnesota right now and in New Mexico. So it is scary. CNN is a little more frightening than others, but I brave it, and it's turned out okay. They do try and find the worst clip of you and play it all day. So there are days where I don't watch TV at all. If I've done an interview and I know that clip's gonna go all day long just to make you feel terrible because you made a mistake.
All right, so we have a tradition here of a lightning round, so we're going to ask you a series of questions, and 1 or 2 or 3 word answers are okay. If you want to take a little bit longer and have a sentence, that's fine too. What's something on your bucket list that none of us would know about, and maybe even your husband wouldn't know about?
I think Patrick would know everything on my bucket list. It's to go to Italy. I've never been to Italy, and we just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, so maybe one day we'll get a trip to celebrate our 20 years together.
One person in the world you'd like to have lunch with other than a family member?
Oh, wait, I didn't think, Oprah. I love Oprah. I loved Oprah ever since I'd come home from school and I'd turn Oprah on. General Hospital and then Oprah.
One of your favorite songs?
I love Imagine Dragons, so pretty much anything from Imagine Dragons. But one of my hype-up songs before an interview is Thunder by Imagine Dragons.
Favorite team growing up?
The Detroit Lions, which is awful to say. I still love the Detroit Lions. I'm a total Detroit fan, but I love BYU too. I went to BYU.
Your best sport?
I have no best sport.
Okay.
It's humiliating.
We'll go right into reading. What's your favorite book that you read, or the last book?
My favorite book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I've always loved that book. So I don't know if I'm an English major, so love it. She breaks the norms. Jane Eyre's one of my favorite books. Go read it. So.
How about your favorite movie? What's your favorite movie?
The Natural. Have any of you seen The Natural? Do you know that movie with Robert Redford? It's a totally dorky movie to love, but I love it. The music, every time he hits the ball out of the park, I just love that movie.
Describe Detroit in 1 word.
Thriving.
Terrific. And finally, advice to your 25-year-old self.
I think
you can take a little time on doing this. It doesn't have to be 1 word.
I think as a woman in politics, there's not, as Carol said, I'm only the 2nd woman in this role. I was the 3rd woman to be Michigan chair. Have more confidence in yourself, lean into those situations, and don't be afraid to strive for big things, and don't be intimidated by others whose resume may seem better, but your common sense can match that anytime. So that would be it.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
today.
Thanks,
We're going to go down.